Hey there, my dear friend. Welcome to our cozy haven, where the gentle sounds of drizzling rain and soothing light music blend with enchanting bedtime stories to help you unwind and slip into a peaceful slumber. Tonight, we're about to embark on a touching journey with a story titled The Photographer from Marseille. Sleep Story. ASMR. Rain sounds for sleep. Light music for sleep. So, get comfortable. Close your eyes. And let the story carry you away. Part 1. A rainy evening in Lyon. I'm sitting in a quiet bar in Lyon. The rain is pattering against the window, creating a soft, rhythmic melody. It's one of those evenings where the outside world seems to be encapsulated in its own little sphere, and I'm merely an observer from within. I reach into my pocket and pull out a well-worn black and white photograph. The edges are frayed, and the image has faded slightly over the years. As I hold it gently in my hands, I can't help but start to speak. I'm not sure if I'm speaking to the photograph itself or if I'm just lost in my own reveries. You know how it is, right? Sometimes, when you're alone with a memory, it feels like you need to share it, even if there's no one around to listen. In the photograph, there are two people. They're laughing, and there's the sea in the background. The sunlight is hitting them just right, making their faces radiate. It's a moment frozen in time, a moment that I've carried with me for what seems like an eternity. I remember that day as vividly as if it were yesterday. The way the sea breeze was caressing us, the smell of salt in the air. It was a day brimming with so much joy, so much vitality. And now, here I am, years later, in this bar, gazing at this photograph. I wonder if you've ever had a moment in your life that you wish you could relive. A moment that was so perfect, so filled with emotion, that it's become an integral part of who you are. Well, this photograph represents one of those moments for me. The bar is dimly lit. There's a soft jazz tune playing in the background, and the sound of the rain mixing with the music creates a harmonious symphony. I take a sip of my drink, and the warmth of it spreads through me. As I look at the photograph, I can almost feel the sand between my toes, the sun on my skin. I can hear her laughter, that infectious laugh that could brighten up any room. She was truly something special, that one. I start to ponder how life has a way of bringing people into our lives and then taking them away. How a single encounter can alter the course of our lives forever. This woman in the photograph, she changed mine. I remember the first time I saw her. It was in Marseille, back in 1973. I was there for business, but she was the one who made me stay. She was like a breath of fresh air, a ray of light in a world that had grown a bit dull. The rain outside is intensifying now. The drops are hitting the window with more force, but it only adds to the coziness of the bar. I continue to stare at the photograph, lost in my memories. I think about all the things we did together, all the places we explored. Each moment was a new adventure, a new discovery. And throughout it all, she had her camera, capturing every little detail. I wonder what she's doing now, where she is, if she's happy. I like to imagine that she's out there, still taking photographs, still capturing the beauty of the world. As I sit here, I realize that this photograph is more than just an image. It's a connection to a time and a place, to a person who will always hold a special place in my heart. Part 2. The first time I saw her. I remember arriving in Marseille in the spring of 1973 like it was a dream. The sun was shining bright, and the city was alive with the kind of energy that you can only find in a port town. I was there for a trade negotiation, but from the moment I stepped off the train, something else caught my eye. The light in Marseille, it's different. It's this golden glow that seems to touch everything, making even the most ordinary things look extraordinary. And then, there was her. I was walking near the docks, trying to find my way to the meeting place. That's when I saw her. She was crouched on the stone steps, her camera in hand. The sea was behind her, and the wind was blowing her hair, which had a touch of salt in it. She was so focused on what she was doing that she didn't even notice me at first. I stood there, just watching her. She was capturing the stillness between two fishing boats. The way she moved, the way she adjusted her camera, it was like she was in her own world. Dear friend, have you ever seen someone so engrossed in what they're doing that it's almost like they're a part of the art itself? That's how she looked to me. I finally gathered the courage to approach her. As I got closer, I could see the details of her face. She had these bright eyes, full of curiosity and passion. She looked up at me and gave me a small smile. Beautiful, isn't it, she said, referring to the scene she was photographing. I nodded, not really knowing what to say. I was more focused on her than the boats. We started talking, and I found out that she wasn't from Marseille. She was just passing through, like me. She was a freelance photographer, traveling from place to place, capturing the world through her lens. I told her about my business trip, and she listened intently. But I could tell that her mind was still on the photograph she had just taken. There was this excitement in her eyes, a kind of fire that I had never seen before. We talked for a while longer, and then she had to go. She said she had another shot she wanted to get before the light changed. As she walked away, I couldn't help but watch her. I knew that this chance encounter was going to change something in my life. I went to my meeting, but my mind wasn't really on the business at hand. I kept thinking about the woman with the camera, the way she looked at the world. I had never met anyone like her before. After the meeting, I found myself walking back to the docks, hoping to see her again. But she was gone. All that was left was the memory of her and the image of her crouched on the steps, camera in hand. I spent the rest of the day exploring Marseille, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had met someone special. I wondered if I would ever see her again. Little did I know that this was just the beginning of a story that would stay with me for the rest of my life. Part 3. A woman who captured silence. The day after our first encounter, I was strolling through the city, still thinking about her. I had this feeling that I might run into her again, and lo and behold, there she was. She was sitting at an outdoor cafe, sipping coffee, with her camera resting on the table. I walked over and asked if I could join her. She looked up, and a smile spread across her face. "Sure," she said, and gestured to the empty chair. We introduced ourselves properly this time. She told me her name was Clara. Just Clara. She said she didn't believe in long introductions. A name was all you needed to start a conversation. Clara was a freelance photographer, as she had mentioned before. But as we talked, I realized that photography was more than just a job for her. It was her way of communicating, her way of capturing the world as she saw it. She said, "I don't just take pictures of things. I try to capture the silence between things, the moments that most people miss." Dear friend, have you ever thought about the world like that? The idea that there are these hidden moments, these pockets of silence that hold so much meaning. She showed me some of the pictures in her camera. There were shots of old buildings, the peeling paint on the walls, and the shadows cast by the sun. Each photo told a story of a place, a time, and a feeling. I was fascinated. I had never looked at the world through such a lens. And then, she did something unexpected. She took a picture of me. I was just sitting there, sipping my coffee, and she lifted her camera and clicked. I was a bit surprised. I asked her why she took my picture. She said, "You have a look on your face, a kind of curiosity. I want to capture that." That afternoon, as the sun started to set, she handed me a photograph. It was the picture she had taken of me earlier. I looked at it, and I was amazed. I saw myself in a new light. The way she had captured my expression, it was like she had seen something in me that I didn't even know was there. As we sat there, the cafe started to empty. The day was coming to an end, but I didn't want it to. I wanted to keep talking to Clara, to learn more about her and her world. She told me about the places she had been, the people she had met. Each story was more fascinating than the last. She had this way of making even the most ordinary experiences sound extraordinary. I realized that I was falling for her, not just her looks, but her way of seeing the world. She was like a breath of fresh air in my otherwise mundane life. She then started to talk about her process. How she would wait for hours, sometimes days, to get the perfect shot. How she believed that every photograph should have a soul. Dear friend, can you imagine dedicating so much time and passion to an art form to wait patiently for that one moment that would tell a story? She described a time when she was in a small village in the mountains. She had heard about a particular old tree that was said to have witnessed generations of villagers growing up. She spent 3 days there, observing the tree at different times of the day. Finally, on the third evening, as the sun was setting and casting a warm glow, she got the shot. The photograph captured the essence of the tree, its strength, and the stories it held. As the evening turned into night, we finally said our goodbyes. But before I left, she said, "I'll see you around. There are more stories to tell, more pictures to take." I walked away, clutching the photograph she had given me. I knew that this was the start of something special, something that I would cherish for a long time. Part 4. A walk through view, Port. The next day, Clara and I decided to take a walk through the view, Port. The sun was shining brightly, casting a warm glow over the old harbor. The air was filled with the smell of the sea and the sound of seagulls calling overhead. As we walked along the quay, we watched the boats bobbing gently in the water. Some were small fishing boats, their hulls painted in bright colors. Others were larger yachts, sleek and shiny in the sunlight. Clara had her camera with her, of course. She stopped every now and then to take a picture. She captured the way the light reflected off the water, the faces of the fishermen mending their nets, and the old buildings that lined the port. Dear friend, have you ever been to a place that just seems to come alive with stories? That's how the view, Port felt to me. Every corner, every sight, every sound was a chapter waiting to be read. We talked about our childhoods as we walked. Clara told me about growing up in a small town, always with a camera in her hand. She said that she used to follow the postman on his rounds, taking pictures of the houses he delivered to. It was her way of exploring the world around her. I, on the other hand, grew up in a big city. My childhood was filled with the noise of traffic and the hustle and bustle of urban life. I told her how I always felt a bit out of place, like I was missing something. But being with Clara in the view, Port, I felt like I had found that missing piece. She said, "Photos are the only way I remember feelings." And I realized that she was right. Looking at the pictures she took, I could feel the emotions she had captured. As we walked further, we came across a group of children playing with a ball. They were laughing and running around, their faces full of joy. Clara took a picture of them, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. We watched the children for a while, and then Clara turned to me. She said, "You know, you've changed since I first met you. You seem more alive, more open." I thought about what she said. I had been so focused on my business, on the routine of my life, that I had forgotten how to feel. But Clara had shown me a different way of looking at things. We sat down on a bench near the water. The waves were lapping against the dock, and the sun was starting to get a bit warmer. I looked at Clara, and I felt a sense of peace and contentment. I said to her, I had stopped feeling much until I met you. And it was true. She had brought a spark back into my life, a spark that I thought had died out long ago. As the afternoon wore on, we continued our walk. We discovered small alleys filled with shops selling handmade crafts and old books. Each place we visited was like a hidden treasure, waiting to be found. Dear friend, do you believe that some people come into our lives to show us a different path? Clara was that person for me. She was opening my eyes to a world of beauty and emotion that I had been blind to. As the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, we made our way back to the center of the port. We had shared so much in that one day, and I knew that our connection was growing deeper. Part 5. The first night she didn't leave. As the night fell over Marseille, a strange thing happened. A power outage swept through the city. The street lights flickered and went out, and the sounds of the city were replaced by an eerie silence. Clara and I were in her tiny rented flat, talking and looking at the photos she had taken that day. At first, we were a bit startled by the sudden darkness. But then, Clara got up and found some candles. She lit them, and the room was filled with a soft, warm glow. It was as if the world outside had disappeared, and we were in our own little bubble. We opened a bottle of wine that she had been saving. The wine was rich and full, bodied, and it seemed to enhance the coziness of the moment. As we sipped our wine, we put on an old jazz record. The music filled the room, adding to the romantic atmosphere. Dear friend, have you ever experienced a moment where everything just seems to fall into place, where the unexpected turns into something beautiful? That's how this night felt. We started sharing stories, not just about our travels and experiences, but about our dreams and fears. Clara told me about her fear of losing her creative spark. She said that sometimes, when she was in a new place, she would worry that she wouldn't be able to capture the essence of it. I, in turn, shared my fear of getting stuck in a rut, of living a life that was just going through the motions. We listened to each other, really listened, without interrupting. There were no kisses that night, no physical intimacy. It was just about the connection, the sharing of our innermost thoughts. The warm silence between us was filled with unspoken understanding. As the night wore on, I felt a sense of peace. I had never felt so comfortable with someone so quickly. Clara had this way of making me feel like I could be myself, without any pretenses. When the clock struck midnight, we realized how late it was. But neither of us wanted the night to end. We continued to talk, and every now and then, Clara would get up to check the candles, making sure they were still burning bright. Finally, as the first rays of dawn started to peek through the curtains, we both yawned. We had been up all night, but it didn't feel tiring. It felt like a journey of discovery, a journey into each other's souls. In the morning, Clara handed me a photo. It was a picture of my hands lighting one of the candles the night before. I looked at it in amazement. She had captured the moment so perfectly, the way the light was reflecting off my hands, the concentration on my face. She said, "This is a moment I want you to remember. A moment of connection, of warmth." And I knew that this photo, like the night we had just shared, would stay with me forever. I realized that our relationship was evolving into something more than just a casual encounter. It was becoming a deep, seated connection, a bond that was formed through shared experiences and open hearts. Part 6. The photo of her laughing. After that special night, our days in Marseille seemed to blend into a beautiful tapestry of shared experiences. One sunny morning, we decided to climb up to the rooftop of an old building. The view from there was simply breathtaking. The city stretched out before us, a maze of rooftops, and in the distance, the glistening sea. Clara was, as always, full of energy. She was exploring every corner of the rooftop, looking for the perfect shot. I was just content to watch her, to observe the way she interacted with the world around her. She had this child-like enthusiasm that was truly infectious. As she walked around, she came across a group of pigeons. They were pecking at some scattered grains on the ground. Clara crouched down, trying to get a closer shot. Suddenly, one of the pigeons flew up unexpectedly and landed on her shoulder. She let out a surprised laugh, a laugh that was so genuine and full of joy. Dear friend, have you ever heard a laugh that was so pure, so unfiltered, that it made your heart skip a beat? That's how Clara's laugh was in that moment. I quickly grabbed her camera, which was lying nearby. I had never really used a camera before, but I knew I had to capture this moment. I pointed the camera at her and pressed the shutter. When she heard the click, she turned towards me, still laughing. "You caught it," she said. "That's the real me." I looked at the photo in the camera. It was truly a remarkable shot. Her face was lit up with laughter, her eyes were bright, and the pigeon on her shoulder added an element of playfulness. It was a moment of pure happiness, frozen in time. From that day on, that photo became my most precious possession. It was a reminder of the carefree and beautiful side of Clara. I would look at it often, especially on days when we were apart, and it would bring a smile to my face. As we spent more time together, I noticed that Clara was becoming more and more attached to our time in Marseille. She would often talk about how this city was different from the others she had visited. There was a sense of community here, a sense of history that seeped through every cobblestone and building. We continued to explore the city together. We visited small art galleries, where Clara would study the paintings, looking for inspiration. We also went to local markets, where we would sample different kinds of food and interact with the friendly vendors. One evening, as we were sitting by the canal, Clara said, "I think I could stay here for a while. There's so much to capture, so much to discover." I was overjoyed to hear her say that. I had been secretly hoping that she would want to stay, that our time together in the city wouldn't end so soon. But deep down, I knew that Clara was a free spirit. She was used to moving from one place to another, always in search of new stories, new images to capture. I wondered how long this new-found sense of stability would last for her. As the days passed, we created more memories. Each day was filled with laughter, exploration, and a growing connection between us. And through it all, the photo of Clara laughing remained a constant reminder of the beautiful person she was and the special moments we shared. Part 7. She belonged to the road. As the days in Marseille turned into weeks, I started to notice a change in Clara. She was still the same vibrant, passionate woman I had fallen for, but there was a restlessness in her eyes. One morning, as we sat at our usual cafe, she said, "I've always been on the move, you know. I photograph before I get too attached. Dear friend, have you ever loved someone who seemed to be constantly pulled by the call of the unknown? That was Clara. She had this wild, untamed spirit that was both alluring and a bit terrifying. She would still take pictures every day, but now, there was a sense of urgency in her actions. She would leave earlier in the morning, come back late at night, and spend hours developing the photos in the small dark room she had set up in her flat. Each morning, she would hand me a photograph along with a note. The notes were little observations about me, like today you look like a man learning to breathe. They were simple, yet they meant the world to me. I tried to understand her need to keep moving. I knew that her photography was her life, her way of making sense of the world. But a part of me hoped that she would want to stay, that she would want to build a life with me in Marseille. One day, as we walked along the beach, she said, "This place is beautiful, truly. But I feel like there's another story waiting for me somewhere else. I can't explain it, it's just this feeling I have." I listened to her, my heart sinking a little. I didn't want her to leave, but I also didn't want to hold her back. I said, "I understand, but I wish you could stay a little longer." She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and determination. "I wish I could too," she said. "But if I stay too long in one place, I'm afraid I'll lose my edge, my ability to see the world in a new way." Over the next few days, Clara started to prepare for her departure. She sorted through her photos, choosing the ones she wanted to take with her. She also made a list of places she wanted to visit next. I helped her as much as I could, but inside, I was dreading the day she would leave. I tried to focus on the time we had left together, on creating more memories that I could hold onto. We went to all our favorite places one last time. We sat on the rooftop where I had taken the photo of her laughing. We walked through the view, poured, hand in hand, and watched the sunset over the sea. As the day of her departure drew closer, I could feel the tension growing between us. Neither of us wanted to say goodbye, but we both knew it was inevitable. Dear friend, have you ever been in a situation where you knew something beautiful was coming to an end, and there was nothing you could do to stop it? That's how I felt. But even in the face of this impending loss, I was grateful for the time we had spent together. Clara had changed my life, had shown me a new way of looking at the world. And for that, I would always be thankful. Part A. The day the fisherman died. One day, as we were walking along the port as usual, we witnessed a small tragedy. A fisherman, who had been a familiar face around the docks, suddenly collapsed. People rushed to his side, but it was clear that something was seriously wrong. Clara, with her camera instincts, immediately started to capture the scene. She did it quietly, reverently, as if she was documenting a moment that held a deeper meaning. I stood there, a bit shocked, watching as the chaos unfolded around us. The other fishermen were trying to help, shouting for someone to call for an ambulance. Some of them were looking on with expressions of worry and sadness. Clara moved around, getting different angles, but she wasn't being intrusive. It was as if she was a part of the moment, yet separate, observing and preserving it. Dear friend, have you ever seen someone turn a tragic event into something that might bring understanding or even a form of healing through their art? That's what Clara was doing. After a while, the ambulance arrived, and they took the fisherman away. The port slowly started to go back to its normal hustle and bustle, but there was a sense of somberness in the air. Clara and I walked to a quiet corner, and she sat down, looking at the photos she had taken. That man, she said, he was a part of the sport. His life, his work, it was all here. And in an instant, everything changed. I nodded, not really knowing what to say. I was still processing what had just happened. That night, as we sat in her flat, she said, "This city holds so much loss in its walls. Every corner, every person has a story of pain or sadness. But you look like hope." She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of emotions. I was taken aback by her words. I had never thought of myself as a symbol of hope. But in that moment, I realized how much our relationship had become important to her, just as it was to me. We talked about life, about how fragile it was, and how we should cherish every moment. Clara said that this event had made her think about her own journey, about how she had been taking so many things for granted. She then showed me the photos again. In them, I could see the raw emotion, the worry on the faces of the fishermen, the sense of urgency. But there was also a strange beauty in the way she had captured the light, the way it fell on the scene. As we sat there, looking at the photos, I felt a stronger connection to Clara. We had shared this moment of sadness, and it had brought us closer. But at the same time, I knew that her restlessness might still lead her away from me. Dear friend, do you think that shared experiences, even the painful ones, can strengthen a relationship? I believe they can. And in that moment, I hope that this shared experience would be enough to make Clara want to stay, or at least come back to me. We sat in silence for a while longer, just thinking. The city outside was alive with its usual sounds, but inside that flat, it was as if time had stopped for us, as we processed the events of the day and our uncertain future. Part 9. The Argument on the Cliff. A few days after the fisherman's incident, the tension between Clara and me reached a boiling point. I was desperate for her to stay, to build a life with me in Marseille. I loved her, and I couldn't bear the thought of her leaving. On the other hand, Clara was torn between her love for me and her deep-seated need to keep moving, to explore the world through her camera. We decided to take a walk up to the cliffs overlooking the city. The wind was strong, blowing our hair in every direction. The sea below was a deep blue, and the waves crashed against the rocks with a powerful force. I started the conversation, saying, "Clara, I think we have something special here. We can build a life together in the city. There are so many stories to tell right here, without you having to leave." She looked at me, her eyes filled with conflict. "I know what we have is special," she said. But my photography, it's not just a hobby. It's my life. If I stay in one place for too long, I'm afraid I'll lose myself, my creativity. Dear friend, have you ever been in an argument where both sides have valid points, but it still feels like there's no way to compromise? That's how it was for us. I tried to reason with her. But you can still take pictures here. Marseille is a beautiful city, full of life and stories. And I'll be here with you, supporting you. Clara shook her head. It's not the same. I need to see new places, meet new people. Each new location gives me a different perspective, a new way of seeing things. Our voices were getting louder, carried away by the wind. I was getting frustrated, and I could tell she was too. In a moment of anger, she took one of her undeveloped rolls of film and threw it into the sea. I'm scared of staying, she said. But I'm more scared of leaving without saying goodbye. I was shocked by her action. That roll of film was probably filled with memories, with moments she had captured. But then I realized how conflicted she must be feeling. I took a deep breath and said, I don't want to lose you. But I also don't want to force you to do something you don't want to do. She looked at me, tears in her eyes. I don't want to lose you either. But I don't know how to balance my love for you and my love for photography. We stood there for a long time, looking out at the sea. The wind continued to blow, and the waves kept crashing. I knew that this was a pivotal moment in our relationship. Dear friend, have you ever had to make a difficult decision that could change the course of your life? We were at that crossroads, and I had no idea which way our relationship would go. As the sun started to set, casting an orange glow over the sea, we started to walk back down the cliff. Neither of us said much. The argument had left us both exhausted, emotionally and physically. But deep down, I still hoped that we could find a way to work things out. I loved Clara, and I knew that she loved me too. We just had to find a way to bridge the gap between our different desires. Part 10. The morning she was gone. I woke up the next morning with a sense of unease. The sunlight was filtering through the curtains, casting a soft glow over the room. But something felt different. I reached out to the other side of the bed, and it was cold. Clara was not there. I sat up quickly, a feeling of dread washing over me. I called out her name, but there was no answer. I got out of bed and started to search the flat. Her camera equipment, which was usually scattered around, was gone. All that was left was a photograph on the table and a note beside it. I picked up the photograph. It was a picture of my sleeping face. I looked peaceful, unaware of the turmoil that was about to come. I remembered the night before, the argument on the cliff, and the look of pain in Clara's eyes. Then I picked up the note. It read, "Don't follow me. Let this image hold me instead. I love you, but I need to find myself. Maybe one day, our paths will cross again." Dear friend, have you ever had a moment where your heart felt like it was being ripped apart? That's how I felt in that moment. I couldn't believe she was gone. I had hoped that we would find a way to work things out, to be together. I sat down at the table, still holding the photograph and the note. I stared at them for what felt like hours. The flat, which had been filled with so much life and love just a few days ago, now felt empty. I thought about all the times we had spent together, the laughter, the conversations, the shared experiences. It all seemed like a dream now. I wondered where she was, if she was okay. I knew that Clara was a free spirit, that she needed to follow her own path. But that didn't make it any easier to accept her departure. I felt a sense of loss, like a part of me had been taken away. As the day went on, I walked around the city. I went to all the places we had visited together, the cafe where we first met, the view, port, the rooftop where I took the photo of her laughing. But everywhere I went, I was reminded of her absence. I couldn't bring myself to do anything. My mind was filled with thoughts of Clara. I kept replaying our last conversation, our argument, over and over again in my head. I wondered if I could have done something differently, if I could have convinced her to stay. Dear friend, have you ever experienced regret like this, the kind that eats away at you, making it hard to move on? As the sun started to set, I made my way back to the flat. I knew that I couldn't stay there forever, that I had to go back to my own life. But leaving this place meant leaving behind all the memories of Clara, and that was the hardest thing to do. I packed my things slowly, still in a daze. Before I left, I took one last look around the flat. I placed the photograph of me sleeping and the note in my pocket. I knew that these were the only things I had left of Clara for now. Part 11. The letter I never sent. Back in Paris, life felt empty without Clara. The bustling city that I once found so full of energy now seemed dull and uninteresting. I went through the motions of my daily routine, but my heart wasn't in it. I started writing letters to Clara. I would sit at my desk in the evenings, penning down all the thoughts and feelings that I had been keeping inside. I wrote about how much I missed her, how every corner of Marseille was etched in my memory, and how I hoped she was finding what she was looking for. Dear friend, have you ever written a letter to someone, pouring your heart out, but never had the courage to send it? That's what I was doing. One letter in particular, I wrote it over and over again. I would start, cross out words, rewrite sentences, trying to get it just right. In this letter, I told her that I understood her need to leave, but that I still loved her and would always be there for her. I described the way the sunlight hit the water in the view port, the sound of her laughter on the rooftop, and the look in her eyes when she talked about her photography. I would imagine her reading the letter, her expression as she took in my words. But every time I was about to seal the envelope and send it, I would hesitate. I was afraid that she might not respond, or that my words would push her further away. So, I kept these letters in a box under my bed. I would take them out from time to time, read them, and add new thoughts. It was as if through these letters, I was still communicating with her, still a part of her life in some small way. I also started looking at the photographs she had given me more often. The one of me sipping coffee, the picture of my hands lighting the candle, and of course, the photo of her laughing. Each photo was a portal to a different moment in our time together, a moment filled with love, curiosity, and discovery. I often wondered where Clara was. Was she in a new city, capturing the essence of a different culture? Was she happy? I hoped that wherever she was safe and that her photography was bringing her the joy it always had. As the months passed, I tried to move on. I made new friends, took on new projects at work, but Clara was always in the back of my mind. I would see a woman with a camera on the street, and for a moment, my heart would skip a beat, hoping it was her. Dear friend, have you ever had someone in your life who, even though they're gone, still have such a hold on you? Clara was that person for me. One evening, as I sat in a quiet bar, looking at the rain outside, I took out the letter I had written so many times. I read it again, and this time, I made a decision. I would keep the letter, not as a sign of my hesitation, but as a reminder of the love I had for Clara and the hope that one day, we would meet again. Part 12. The time I thought I saw her. Years passed, and I found myself traveling to Lisbon for a business trip. The city was a beautiful blend of old world charm and modern energy. Narrow cobblestone streets wound their way up and down the hills, and the sound of fado music filled the air in the evenings. One afternoon, as I was walking through the Alfama district, I heard a laugh that stopped me in my tracks. It was a laugh that I had heard in my dreams, a laugh that was as familiar to me as my own. I turned around, my heart pounding in my chest. There, across the street, was a woman with a camera strapped across her chest. She was standing in front of a colorful tiled building, talking to a local. She had the same way of moving, the same bright eyes, and for a split second, I was convinced it was Clara. I started walking towards her, my steps quickening with each passing moment. I couldn't believe that after all these years, I might be seeing her again. As I got closer, I could feel my hands trembling. Dear friend, have you ever had a moment where you were so sure that something you've been longing for was finally happening? That's how I felt in that moment. But as the woman turned fully towards me, I realized it wasn't Clara. Her features were similar, but her eyes were a different color, and her smile, though warm, didn't have the same spark. I stopped in my tracks, a wave of disappointment washing over me. The woman noticed my reaction and gave me a curious look. "Are you okay?" she asked. I managed to smile and say, "Yes, I'm sorry. You just reminded me of someone." I stood there for a moment longer, looking at her. Even though she wasn't Clara, the encounter had brought back a flood of memories. I remembered the first time I saw Clara in Marseille, the way she had captured my attention with her camera and her smile. I started to walk away, but then I stopped. I realized that even though this woman wasn't Clara, the fact that I had reacted so strongly showed that Clara still had a hold on my heart. And that was okay. I continued my walk through the Alfama district, but now with a different perspective. I thought about how our memories can shape our present, how a simple laugh or a familiar sight can transport us back in time. Dear friend, do you think that these unexpected moments of mistaken identity are a way for our minds to keep the memories alive? As the sun started to set, casting a warm glow over the city, I found a small cafe and sat down. I ordered a cup of coffee and watched as the people of Lisbon went about their evening. I knew that Clara was out there somewhere, living her life, taking pictures. And even though I might never see her again, the memories we shared would always be a part of me. I smiled to myself, content in the knowledge that our time together, though brief, had been truly special. Part 13. The exhibit in Berlin. A few years after my trip to Lisbon, I found myself in Berlin for a conference. During my free time, I decided to explore the city's vibrant art scene. I wandered into a small, independent gallery tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. As I entered, the space was filled with a soft, diffused light. The walls were lined with black and white photographs, each one telling a story. I started to walk around, examining the images. The style was familiar, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it at first. Then, I saw it. In the corner of the gallery, there was a photograph of me. I was sitting at a cafe in Marseille, sipping coffee, with a look of curiosity on my face. It was the very picture Clara had taken of me on that first afternoon we met. My heart skipped a beat. I looked around, half expecting to see her there. The caption beneath the photo read, "The man who reminded me light can stay." Dear friend, have you ever had a moment where the past comes rushing back at you with such force that it takes your breath away? That's exactly how I felt in that gallery. I stood there, staring at the photograph, for what seemed like an eternity. I remembered that day clearly, the way Clara had captured me in that unguarded moment. I wondered how this photo had ended up in this gallery in Berlin. I started to look at the other photos in the exhibit more closely. They were all Clara's work. There were pictures of different cities, people from all walks of life, and moments of beauty and simplicity. Each photo had that unique quality that only Clara could capture, that ability to find the hidden stories in the ordinary. I found a gallery attendant and asked about the exhibit. She told me that the photographer, Clara, was a well-known freelance artist who traveled the world, capturing the essence of different places and people. She said that Clara's work was highly regarded for its authenticity and emotional depth. I asked if the attendant knew where Clara was now. She shook her head and said that Clara was a bit of a nomad, always on the move. But she did mention that Clara had left instructions for this exhibit, and she seemed to be planning her next project. As I left the gallery, I couldn't help but feel a sense of connection to Clara. Even though we had been apart for so long, her work was a reminder of the time we had spent together. It was as if she was reaching out to me through her art. I walked through the streets of Berlin, lost in thought. I thought about how our lives had taken different paths, but how our connection was still there, through the memories and the art she had created. Dear friend, do you believe that art can be a bridge between people, even when they're miles apart I do. And in that moment, I felt closer to Clara than I had in years. I knew that I might never have the chance to see Clara again in person, but seeing her work, knowing that she was still out there, creating and exploring, brought me a strange sense of peace. I carried the memory of that exhibit with me, a precious reminder of the woman who had changed my life. Part 14. A photograph in the rain. After leaving the gallery in Berlin, I carried the memory of Clara's exhibit with me everywhere. Time passed, and I eventually found myself back in Lyon. One day, as I sat in a quiet bar, the rain was pouring outside, creating a steady, rhythmic sound against the window. I had been thinking about Clara more than ever, and the photograph of me from the exhibit was still fresh in my mind. I decided to leave the bar and brave the rain. There was something about the rainy weather that seemed to match my mood. As I walked along the street, huddled under my umbrella, I noticed a young woman sitting under an awning, sketching. Her face was focused, and she had a small easel in front of her. I stopped for a moment to watch her. She looked up at me and smiled. "Nice day for a walk," she said, a bit of sarcasm in her voice due to the rain. I smiled back and replied, "Well, it has its charm." Then, she noticed the photograph in my hand. I had been carrying it with me, looking at it from time to time. "Was she someone important?" she asked, nodding towards the photo. I looked down at the picture of Clara laughing, the one I had taken so long ago. "She still is," I said, my voice soft. "Dear friend, have you ever had a moment where you share a piece of your heart with a stranger? That's what happened in that moment." I started to tell the young woman a bit about Clara, about how we met in Marseille, and the time we spent together. She listened intently, her sketching forgotten for a moment. I told her about the power outage in Marseille, the night we shared stories and music by candlelight. I described the argument on the cliff, and how Clara left. I even mentioned the exhibit in Berlin and how seeing my photo there had made me feel. The young woman nodded, her eyes filled with empathy. "It sounds like you had a really special connection," she said. "Even though she's not with you, it's clear that she still means the world to you." I realized that she was right. Clara had been gone for years, but she was still a part of me. Her memory, the way she saw the world, had changed me forever. As the rain started to slow down, I thanked the young woman for listening. She wished me well and said, "Maybe one day, your paths will cross again." I continued my walk, feeling a bit lighter. Sharing my story with the young woman had been therapeutic. It was as if I had given a voice to the thoughts and feelings that I had been carrying around for so long. Dear friend, sometimes, a simple conversation with a stranger can bring a new perspective to our lives. Do you agree? I knew that the road ahead was still uncertain. I didn't know if I would ever see Clara again. But I was content with the memories, with the knowledge that our time together had been real and beautiful. Part 15. For the one who framed the light. As I walked on through the now clearing streets of Lyon, the encounter with the young woman still fresh in my mind, I felt a new sense of closure. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the photograph of Clara laughing. The edges were a bit worn from years of being carried around, but the image was as vivid as ever. I decided to do something I had been thinking about for a long time. I found a small, old-fashioned stationery store and went inside. I bought a weathered-looking envelope, the kind that seemed to carry stories of its own. Dear friend, have you ever had a moment when you know exactly what you need to do, even if it might seem a bit strange? That's how I felt. Back outside, I carefully placed the photograph inside the envelope. I held it in my hands for a moment, as if holding onto a piece of my heart. I then addressed the envelope, not to a specific address, but simply writing Clara on it. I walked to the nearest post box. As I stood in front of it, I took a deep breath. I thought about all the years that had passed, all the memories that Clara and I had shared. I remembered the first time I saw her crouched on the steps in Marseille, the way she captured the world through her camera. I whispered, "Clara, you once said I looked like a man learning to breathe. I hope you knew you were the breath." And with that, I gently placed the envelope into the post box. It was a symbolic gesture, a way for me to let go, yet also to hold on to the love and memories we had shared. I knew that the letter might never reach her, but it didn't matter. It was more about the act itself, about releasing my feelings into the world. As I walked away from the post box, I felt a sense of peace. I had finally done something to mark the end of this chapter in my life. But at the same time, I knew that Clara would always be a part of me. The sun was starting to peek through the clouds, casting a warm glow over the city. I looked around at the people going about their day, and I felt a newfound appreciation for life. Clara had taught me to see the beauty in the ordinary, to cherish every moment. Dear friend, sometimes, letting go is the most difficult, yet the most freeing thing we can do. Do you think you've ever experienced something like this? I continued my journey, not knowing what the future held. But I was ready to embrace it, carrying the lessons and memories that Clara had given me. I knew that wherever life took me, the story of the photographer from Marseille would always be a part of my soul. And as I turned the corner, I took one last look back at the post box, a small smile on my face. I was at peace, ready to move forward, with the love and memories of Clara lighting my way. And that, dear friend, brings us to the end of tonight's story, The Photographer from Marseille. Thank you so much for spending this evening with me, allowing these words, the gentle rain sounds, and the soft music to lull you into a peaceful state. If this story has touched your heart, made you feel a little more relaxed, or simply brought a bit of warmth to your night, I would be truly grateful if you could give this video a thumbs up. It really helps our channel grow. Also, if you enjoy these kinds of ASMR sleep stories, filled with tender emotions and calming elements, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. That way, you'll never miss out on another soothing tale. Once again, thank you for your company. I hope you have a wonderful night's sleep, filled with beautiful dreams. Good night.